Good morning, everyone. It is hard to keep a dry eye during that. It's just me. Maybe a few of you out there, huh? You are the face of God. There's no question about it. I get to stand up here, and I say we say it's an honor to be here. It's a privilege. It's what a gift to look at your faces, particularly after that song, because you all are the face of God. So over the last 3 weeks, as Mary Beth mentioned, we've been going through 3 points and basically focusing on 2 points over the last 2 weeks, and we're going to cover the last one this morning. And as I previously mentioned in former weeks, and I invite anyone who's watching, anyone here, if you haven't seen any of the series, you can catch them online. Just go to the Unity and Naperville website. And we've gone through each of these, starting with love only. These are basically from a mission statement from a very good dear friend of ours, another minister in California, Dr. James Melton at the Global Truth Center. And there's also a church in Arizona, I can't remember which one, a Unity church. It's Tucson. Mary Beth said it's Tucson that has this as their mission statement too. So they've adopted these as their vision statements, actually. And we just love it. We love these words, however you incorporate them in your life, because what they're really all about is becoming an energetic match to everything that you desire in the so-called quantum field, the allness of the universe, if you will. In other words, it means that when I practice these ideas, these principles, having this as a vision, I'm basically aligning myself with the universe, the universal power, with God, with spirit, whatever name you want to call that. It's all about aligning myself in my thinking. It's not that I'm already not one with spirit. It's not that you're already not one with spirit, because we are. Each one of us is. We're each unique, individualized expressions of God. That is what we teach. It's what I believe, and I think you believe it too, because you're sitting here. It's the key principle of unity, and key principle of all New Thought teachings. But it's about, even though it's the truth as I see it, I have to remind myself of it. Is it just me? Anyone else have to remind yourself every now and then? If you got cut off on the road or tailgated this morning on the way over to the church, it's a reminder, right? Mary Beth reminded me this morning, actually. So I'm always talking about me up here. Remember that. As I come here, we have a good friend, Barb Mueller, who always says, "How will the universe surprise and delight me today?" And that's what I get to know as I come in here and speak with you this morning. And Mary Beth's going to be speaking on part of this talk as well. How will the universe amaze and delight us today? You know, what's going to come up for me today? Because we only talk about what we need to hear for ourselves. So these 3 principles, these 3 ideas, love only. It means that I'm looking at everything in my life and looking at others in my life through a different lens, if you will. You remember the master teacher used to say, "Turn the other cheek"? He didn't tell us to turn the other cheek so we can get slapped on it. Turning the other cheek means I'm looking in a different way. When we turn our cheek, we're looking at life through a different lens. And I need to remind myself constantly about that. Maybe even more nowadays with some of the turmoil in the world and in politics and all those things. But it's even small things going on within my body, things going on in the relationships. I have to remind myself to change my lens, clear that lens out, if you will. It's like wiping off my eyeglasses. I have to clear the lens and remind myself to love only. Love only. There's something in this situation I can love. There's something in this person I can love. The master teacher said, "How can you say you love God who you have not seen when you cannot love your fellow man or woman who you have seen?" And that speaks so loudly, doesn't it? And that's the work. I've talked several times through this series, we talk about doing our work. I talk for myself of doing my work. And it does take work. It takes effort. We always say these principles are relatively simple. When you look at the principles we teach in New Thought, they really are. But they're not easy. They're not easy to practice in our lives. And it doesn't mean it's painstaking or anything, but at moments it can be. It means I have to be conscious. I have to pay attention and be aware. Mary Beth and I always say it's the ABCs of consciousness. Awareness builds consciousness. So when I'm going through something or something's going through me, then I need to be aware. I need to pay attention. And it's just that awareness, for starters, even if I don't know what to do with it, just the awareness that, there's something happening here. Sounds like an old song, something happening here, that I need to pay attention to. That's key, and that helps me to move forward. When I see myself as the face of God, and when I see each of you as the face of God, you're so easy to love. That's the truth. When I see myself as the face of God, I'm so easy to love, because sometimes I'm not so easy to love for myself. I have to do that work, right? Come down, look in the mirror first thing in the morning, say, where'd my hair go? And I will be amazed and delighted by how I style it today. Mary Beth is jealous. I never have to use a hairdryer anymore. It's a pathway to living life. It's a pathway. Last week we spoke about forgiving everything. Forgiving everything. That second word, did you see the second word? Forgive everything. Does that take a bit of work? Sure, you bet it does. Small things, big things. But when I fail not to forgive everything, when I carry stuff around, old resentments, angers, sometimes it's with myself. I could probably find at least one of those every day. When I do that, I'm blocking out the flow of the universe. Why? Because I'm bringing about what I'm thinking about. And it's the prevalent thinking that's on there. It's continuous. It's going on. When I'm carrying resentments around, we think we're sending poison to the other person, but actually it's just going back to me. So my work here on forgiving everything is to let go and let God, to turn it over and to know that my life really is unfolding perfectly. That whatever I perceived as a harm that was done to me, really it was in my mind, my thinking, whether the person intended it or not. But how do I choose to live my life today? How do you choose to live your life today? Do you choose to live your life in a loving, joyful manner, or carry around old stuff that's not serving us in any way? My life is unfolding perfectly. I love that statement. And I remind myself of that sometimes, that when I'm stuck, I feel like I don't know how I'm going to move past this. My life is unfolding perfectly. So today, we're going to remember who we are. And we probably summed it up in that beautiful song, and thank you, Highest Good, and Kim, that was just perfect. I am the face of God. I am the face of God. Isn't that a remembering? Have you ever looked at a newborn baby and not thought that? Have you ever seen an ugly newborn baby? I never have. An ugly child? No. You know, the smile, the glint in their eyes. But that's me. That's you. Looking at yourself. Because where did that child in you go? It's still there. You still are that child. Mary Beth tells me all the time I'm a child. It's a great reminder, though, isn't it? This is part of who we are. Remembering who I am. I am spirit in expression. Last week, actually it was this last week, Mary Beth and I were out of town for the whole week. We went up to northern Michigan. We were up in a town called Charlevoix. Anyone familiar with that? Charlevoix and Petoskey. It's all the way up in Michigan. And yes, I would have not raised my hand a few weeks ago, and I grew up in Chicago, but I had never been up there. So I said, well, Mary Beth's from Los Angeles. Let's share this together. We're still celebrating our 30-year anniversary, so that's kind of been ongoing. So this was an anniversary trip for us. So we went up to spend the week up there, and it was wonderful. It was beautiful. There's lakes up there. We were right by Lake Michigan, and there were other lakes all around, and just the trees up there are magnificent. They're almost like being up in Northern California. For those of you who've been to northern Wisconsin, northern Michigan, you really are in the North Woods, the beginning of the North Woods. It's just gorgeous. And once you know it, however, wherever I go, there I am. So I had some stuff that came up for me this week, some physical stuff. I was dealing with some expressions of allergies, if you will, which I didn't even know I had. But they came up this week, and it started actually a few weeks back. This has been going on, but it got worse on the trip, but did not hinder the trip. However, I realized I needed to do some ABC here, and awareness builds consciousness. I need to take a look at what's going on. I had seen some doctors before I left town. I was working with some natural remedies. I knew something was happening, but I kind of wasn't doing a lot of my mental work that needed to happen. And this week kicked it up a bit. It kind of definitely kicked up. And I said, well, there's something I need to understand here. You know, I can keep doing my work on my physical body. We do have a physical temple we live in, and we have to take care of it, right? And we do see doctors, and we're all about that. That's fine. And never to say don't see a doctor, because that's part of God too. We've got all these wonderful things available to us. That said, my body does not own me. I own my body. My consciousness is reflecting through this body. Everything about me is reflecting through this body. And therefore, I've got work to do, because otherwise this would not be showing up all of a sudden. I like to say that God kind of gives me signs and guideposts along my journey in life. And if I don't pay attention to those signs and guideposts, then I just get lost along the way. My attention was on something other than remembering who I am. There is stuff, I'm still doing my work through this, but there is stuff I've been caught up with. I know that. Anxiousness, or trying to make sure everything's taken care of, or trying to control my life. Anyone like to control things? So a lot of things. The highest truth for me is that my body is an expression of who I am, and that's what I believe about all of us. Our bodies are expressions of who we are. You know, I am God in expression is Michael. Mary Beth is God in expression is Mary Beth. Kim is expressing God as Kim. Each one of you are expressing God as yourself in a unique and special way, but you're not separate from this intelligence. You're never separate from it. So I'm in the midst of doing this work, and I've heard, you may have heard us say this, because I'm not moved by appearances. What? Appearances are moved by me. Because I'm not moved by appearances, appearances are moved by me. So this is kind of an exploration. It's a little bit of a journey for me, if you will. Can we have next slide up, please? So as T.S. Eliot said this. We are, let me just read it up here so I don't get it wrong. We shall not cease from exploration, and at the end of our exploring, we will arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. By T.S. Eliot. And I just love that. It means that in order to get to that place, I need to explore. I need to be like Dora the Explorer, right? Going on a journey. How many here like to explore? Do you have curiosity and like to explore places when you go? Or do you just, like to dig in and say, what's going on here? That's kind of how this is for me. I take great joy in my life looking at these things, trying to understand them and explore. Who am I? Am I remembering who I am? Why am I here? What is mine to do? It's all about exploration. So on this next slide, Wayne Dyer said it like this. You don't attract what you want. You attract who you are. Because I know it's easy in metaphysics and New Thought that we often say, well, we're going to pray for what we want. And that's good. That's fine and well. But to have what I want or desire in any area of my life, what's really going to show up is who am I? How am I showing up in life? Who am I? Who are you? Have you looked at that lately? You can stand in front of a mirror in the morning and say, who are you? It's an interesting question, isn't it? So last night, Mary Beth and I watched a movie that Wayne Dyer did, Wayne Dwyer. I mispronounced that, excuse me. And it's called The Shift. I think he wrote a book around it too, as he always did. And it's quite a wonderful. We haven't seen it in a number of years. But he also said this in that movie. And next slide, please. He said, you get to a place where you begin to be guided by something greater than yourself. You stop fighting and striving, and in parentheses, indeed, the need to expend this type of energy is often a strong indicator that you are not in the flow where you are meant to be. So instead of fighting and striving, instead, you surrender to your highest purpose and be guided from there, allowing things to happen, trusting in Source, focusing on why, and letting go of the how. You don't attract what you want. You attract who you are.
One of the things I do when I get ready for a Sunday lesson is I ask myself, what do I need to hear? So I really appreciate that you all show up so I can talk to myself and get my own answer. Thank you for being here. You know, the word remember, I'm a hyphenator of words. I don't know about the rest of you, but if you take that word and you hyphenate it, remember. To remember is to bring back together. You know, healing, the origin of the word healing is to make whole. And what we're always trying to do when we're trying to remember who we are is to actually get in touch with what we are. So we've been talking about the love only, forgive everything, no exceptions, which is really tall order. And then this remembering who we are, well, we need to get it into context about who we are because it's done at many levels. Who we are has to do with being human. It has to do with being part of the quantum field. It has to do with really waking up to the reality that there is not a sky god out there that we are separate from, but that we are one with. And that takes some real integration for those of us who grew up in Judeo-Christian environments. And anytime I'm feeling separate from Source, I am feeling duality, as are you. In other words, I'm not one with my Source, and so I feel the longing to return and remember who I am. Can I have the slide, please? So what I have been working with, in addition to the 3 parts that we told you about that are part of Dr. James Mellon's vision statement, it occurred to me when we first started this series that I love the work of Brené Brown, and I know a lot of you are BBers too, right? And she's just a wonderful light. You know, she's the shame researcher who burst on the scene back at about 2010 or something like that, and, you know, went on Oprah and, you know, had her seminal work, you know, The Gifts of Imperfection, and off she went and continues to really bless us. But she came up through her research, not through her intuitiveness or her doing psychoanalysis, but her research, her qualitative research. She came up with the idea that there are people on the planet, all over the planet, many probably sitting here in this room, that live life wholeheartedly based on this criteria. They live from courage. If you remember, that was first week, which is we tell our story from our whole heart. The second one was compassion, and that's a biggie. That was a huge one for me, because what I really got from Brené Brown's work was that I could not be in resentment and be compassionate at the same time. And that's a huge one. So whenever I'm feeling resentment, I realize that I have some work to do to be able to teach people how to treat me, and then be willing to share that with them, but also remembering who I am, that I am the face of God when I'm doing it. Ruh-roh. It's not an easy order. And then the last one we're going to talk about today is the idea of connection. You know, Einstein came up with a couple of really spiffy little quotes. One of them is that you have to decide. We all have to decide for ourselves whether we live in a friendly or hostile world. And depending on what the answer is, really flavors and shadows everything that I do or that you do. because it's a filter that we're going to put on how we perceive the world. And the other thing he said, and I looked it up, I want to make sure he was the right guy. He said there are two ways to live your life. One is if nothing is a miracle, and the other is if everything is a miracle. On the slide, we're geekers. Michael and I are the quantum geekers, and one of the wonderful books we've read is called The Possibility Principle, written by Dr. Mel Schwartz, who was actually a psychologist who stumbled into quantum physics and was actually able to make it practical. And Mel said the universe appears fundamentally inseparable. This is one of the principles of quantum physics. A thoroughly interconnected, interpenetrating whole. Inseparability implies that we are an integral part of everything and everyone. That's that face of God, you are in my heart. This understanding showers us with meaning, purpose, and connectedness. You see how this all just goes around and around. But it doesn't stop there. It's been going on for generations. It's been going all over our planet. One of the groups that we could always turn to really understand reverence of life are Indians, the Native Americans. Chief Seattle on the slide said, every part of this earth is sacred. Every shining pine needle, every sandy shore, every mist in the dark woods, every clearing and humming insect is holy in the memory and experience of my people. Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. Back in antiquity, Hermes the Great said, God is an infinite sphere. The circumference is nowhere, and the center is everywhere. I'm standing here, but you're all sitting here, and every one of you is one of those centers of the universe. So I was interested, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this. I hadn't actually until I was getting ready to do these talks, but I was kind of interested in, how did Brene Brown do this work? What exactly did she do to research all this? And so I looked it up, and I read up a little bit about what she said about her work, and she said she does qualitative research. And that means she finds patterns and themes that help better understand phenomena that she's studying. And, she's a story collector. She loves collecting people's stories, and what she does from those stories is she extrapolates answers to the questions he poses through the stories that they tell. And she said when she starts out, when she would refer to as her wholehearted research, she said she had two questions that she asked, and she asked thousands of people in groups and singly. She asked the question, what is the anatomy of human connection? And then she asked, and how does it work? And then worked with everybody's answers. And she said what happened is during her research, after studying the best and the worst of humanity, I can only imagine what those stories were like, she said she learned that nothing is as important as human connection, and she wanted to know more about the ins and outs of how we develop these meaningful connections. And in the process of collecting that data to answer the questions, what she kept bumping up against was the concept of shame. She said this thing is what corrodes connection. So she added to her list of questions as she did her research the questions, what is shame and how does it affect our lives? So then she came up with a definition on the slide of what she considers to be connection. She said it's the energy that exists between people when they feel seen. Listen to this for yourself now, if this fits for you. When we feel seen, heard, and valued. When we give and receive without judgment. And when we derive sustenance and strength from that relationship. I read that and I thought, does that sound like unity in Naperville or what? Don't you feel like when you walk through the door of unity, or even before, when you get up and you get dressed in the morning and you're thinking about going online or coming here, don't you just feel that connection? Don't you just feel like the safety of walking in and being able to look anyone here in the eye, and without even saying a word, it's the namaste, it's you're the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You're a part of me. You're the face of God. Brene says we're hardwired for connection. It is our biology to be connected. We need connection to thrive emotionally, physically, spiritually, intellectually. We need it in all ways. Author Daniel Goleman explores how current findings in biology and neuroscience confirm that we are hardwired for connection and that our relationships shape our biology as well as our experiences. The connectedness we experience in our relationships impacts the way our brains function and develop. So one of the things that Brene got into, which really was a hook in the mouth for me when I first started reading her work years ago, was the concept between fitting in and belonging. It made me think of high school, how many times I spent all that time trying to fit in, all the way into college, barely did college, went out of college, went to work, all the times that I worked, everywhere I went, trying to fit in. And behind it, what was running the show was the corrosion of shame. It was only when I really got into New Thought. When I got into New Thought, I began to realize there was like a moment, I can still remember, there was a moment where I became aware that that sound of shame shut down and it wasn't running anymore. And I went, oh, wow, it's quiet in here. And I began to feel that connection. I began to realize more and more who I was. And I began to study this because it is a lot of study, you guys. It takes some time. When I first started in New Thought back in the early 80s, I used to sit in the back row on Wednesday night. I didn't even go to church on Sunday. But I'd sit in the back row, I'd listen to the minister, I'd go, wow. And as soon as we gave the collection, before they went to coffee, I'd get up and I snuck out the door. I didn't even believe that I deserved to be there. And amazing. I've come a long way, because here I stand, you know. And it really came down to learning how to love myself. And I had a lot of good teachers. I had a lot of friends in there, and I had ministers, and I had people I prayed with. And I just, I did a lot of work around this. It's not easy, you guys. On the slide, let's see. Yeah, okay. The wholehearted journey, this is from Brene. The wholehearted journey is not the path of least resistance. It is a path of consciousness and choice. And to be honest, it's a little counterculture. The willingness to tell our stories, to feel the pain of others, to stay genuinely connected in this disconnected world is not something we do half-heartedly. To practice courage, compassion, and connection is to look at life and the people around us and say, I'm all in. Are you all in? Okay, I'm going to ask it again, guys. Are you all in? Yay. And you know what? Here's the key. You don't have to know how. Just be willing. So you can even just know, I'm willing to be all in. Show me what I need to know, God. Send me in, God. Send me in. Show me what I need to know. This is one of my favorite quotes. Anybody, a simple abundance person, have, that Sarah Von Branach book on their shelves from whatever? This is my favorite quote from the entire book. And to me, it really defines how it feels to be in community of unity. Call it a clan, call it a network, call it a tribe, call it a family. Whatever you call it, whoever you are, you need one. So we're going to end this series with one of our favorite musicians, friends, peers, Reverend Dr. David Alt. David Alt actually was a musician when we first met him back in the 80s and 90s, and he went on to become a minister of a very large church in Georgia. He went from there, as Spirit called him, to move into service, and David is now a founder of something called the Kaleidoscope Child Foundation, where he goes to different parts of the world, and he has put together and helped build schools and create potable water and food, et cetera, in many different countries. And it all started with a burning yearning in his heart to experience adventure, and to feel connected. He was a person who grew up in a very unfortunate childhood with a lot of abuse. So he didn't really have connection modeled for him, but he surely had it in his heart. And so this is our finale of the series before we go into meditation. Dr. David Alt. Thank you.
I'm here to remind you of your magnificence, to help you awake to all the wonder that you are. I long to show you all the joy you're worthy of. I'm here to remind you how much you're truly loved. I'm here to remind you of your magnificence, to help you awake to all the wonder that you are. I long to show you all the joy you're worthy of. I'm here to remind you how much you're truly loved. I'm here to remind you of your magnificence, to help you awake to all the wonder that you are. I long to show all the joy you're worthy of. I'm here to remind you how much you're truly loved. I'm here to remind you how much you're truly loved.
As I'm here to remind myself and to remind you how truly loved you are, how truly loved I am. Because there is an intelligence in this universe that I know is spirit. The one life, the one power, the one presence, God, that has created me in its likeness and image. And the same is true of each and every one of us, as you know this for yourself, that I am this thing called life. I am a unique, individualized expression of this power, this intelligence. And this morning I'm here to remind myself that this intelligence is love. And I am love. So through this knowingness, I'm able to see my magnificence. I'm able to enter into a place of greater willingness and openness to know how beautiful I really am. And as I do that, as I'm able to see this beauty and magnificence within myself, it's easy to see it within others. It's easy to see it within you. So I'm so grateful for the knowingness this morning. To know that as God is love, I practice love only. I practice love only for myself and all those around me, and spread this out to the entire world. And I accept that I am willing to forgive everything. That even in those moments when I'm not sure what that means or looks like or how to do it, I'm willing to let Spirit show me. I'm willing to release and let go and let God. And in so doing all these things this morning, I remember who I am. I remember I am a unique expression of Spirit. I am Spirit in form. So I give thanks, great thanks right now for all the magnificence in my life and all the magnificent good showing up around me. I live in a fabulous universe, and I am blessed and truly grateful for all this good. Knowing that this word is complete, is fulfilled, and already present for me, I release it right now. I let go. I let God. Let it be so. And so it is.